let's talk about Nintendo and nostalgia. Nintendo has been known to pander to nostalgia quite a lot over the years. We've been getting tons of NES-related products, like the classic NES series way back on the GBA, the NES Classic System in 2016, NES Remix on the Wii U and 3DS, and most recently, Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. We've also been getting other 80s throwback products as well, like the Game & Watch releases for Mario and Zelda a few years back, and plenty of 90s stuff too, like the SNES Classic, tons of SNES and N64 merch, the Virtual Boy headset that's releasing soon, and retro-inspired LEGO sets like the recently released Game Boy LEGO set. The Mario franchise had tons of callbacks to older 2D Mario games and Mario 64 too, especially around the early 2010s when they made the Super Leaf the main power-up in multiple mainline games. But recently, it seems like Nintendo seems to finally be acknowledging the 2000s. It seems like it took a little while, but they're now kind of acknowledging it. But I feel like, unlike the 80s and 90s nostalgic content, the 2000s nostalgia surprisingly doesn't feel forced. It seems like they're either building off of older ideas that they started in the 2000s with sequels or entirely new games, remaking games from the 2000s, making them more appealing to modern audiences, and fixing the flaws that the original games had, and shedding more light on obscure titles via re-releases. It really seems like they are naturally implementing the 2000s nostalgia into their regular releases, rather than doing too many standalone type things like they did for the NES, SNES, and even Nintendo 64 to a degree. And in terms of new games that are building off of older ideas, there's a lot of great ones releasing. A couple years ago, we got Pikmin 4, which was the grand return to the Pikmin series after a decade. And this game is essentially a sequel to Pikmin 2. It adds a ton of new ideas like Ochi, the night missions, and bigger environments, while also refining the Pikmin 2 formula, balancing the gameplay between the caves and overworld more. I feel like this is the perfect way to kind of expand upon an older Pikmin idea. And I think it worked out really well. Pikmin 4 is definitely my favorite Pikmin game now. I know some people have their issues with it, and I completely respect that, but in my opinion, it feels like the most refined and fleshed out Pikmin game. Then last year, we got Super Mario Party Jamboree, the full return of the Hudson Soft style Mario Party formula. We did get Superstars a few years before, but that was kind of more of a remake to kind of test the waters of how a modern style classic Mario Party game could work. But Jamboree was fully fleshing out those ideas. It has large vibrant boards and plenty of items like the GameCube Mario Party games, and it really feels like a continuation and is picking up where Mario Party 8 and Mario Party DS left off. And then finally, releasing pretty soon, we have Kirby Air Riders, a direct sequel to Kirby Air Ride that fully fleshes out the ideas that the original started, and is adding more variety and a new twist with multiple playable characters that can use copy abilities. It also brings back that Sakurai-style charm that we don't see too often from Kirby games. So I'm really glad that they've been fleshing out these ideas in a sequel. But on top of new games, we have also been getting some remakes of 2000s games over the past couple years. And yeah, I know sometimes remakes can seem lackluster in a lineup of Nintendo games because they are quite literally rehashes of older games, but at the same time though, if a remake is done well, I feel like it can iron out the flaws that the original game had, give the game a fresh, modern coat of paint, which is pretty nice for fans of the original game sometimes, as long as it's done well, and it can introduce the game to an entirely new audience. And that is exactly what the Thousand Year Door remake did. It was the perfect remake of the original game. It finally brought back the older formula of Paper Mario, which many fans, myself included, have been wanting for years. It does everything incredibly well, even down to the art style, recreating the original character designs while also incorporating the modern Paper Mario papercraft element very well. It is just an excellent remake. But on top of Thousand Year Door, we also got the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake, which I definitely feel is overlooked. it is a really good remake, and I am really glad that they brought back the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong rather than making a new Lemmings-style minis game. That wouldn't have been that bad, but I kind of prefer the DK94 style, and I'm glad that Nintendo Software Technology was kind of able to work with that style again in HD, and I hope that's basically the framework for more games in that style, because it is really fun. I really like the extra content that they added, so it was nice that they were able to bring that game back. And then we even got some remakes of more niche games as well, like Advance Wars 1+2 and Another Code Recollection. I know those games didn't necessarily sell well, but it was pretty cool seeing those games get remade. I've only played like Advance Wars 1+2, I haven't played Another Code Recollection, but Advance Wars 1+2 I actually enjoyed. I know some people had some problems with it, but I did have some fun with it, and I am glad that they kind of did bring back Advance Wars in some way. Unfortunately, it didn't sell well, so I'm not sure if this series will come back anytime soon again, but it still was cool seeing Nintendo shed some light on these series during the Switch 1 era. So we have been getting a decent amount of remakes of 2000s games, which it can seem like nostalgia pandering on the surface, but at the same time, it is introducing a lot of these games to a new audience that didn't have that big of an audience to begin with, but I feel like these remakes were definitely warranted. But on top of games, we are also getting other projects as well that kind of lean into the 2000s nostalgia without feeling too forced. Like the Super Mario Galaxy movie. I won't deny, Super Mario Galaxy is very nostalgic, and it does seem like Nintendo wants to lean in to the nostalgic value of that game as it is nearing 20 years old. But the Super Mario Galaxy movie doesn't really feel like an example of like forced nostalgia pandering because its premise is already excellent for a movie. So this is kind of like an example of things just kind of working out perfectly in that regard. It has the nostalgic value, but is also a great story. Almost kind of like Sonic 3. Like how Sonic 3 loosely adapts Sonic Adventure 2. Like it had the nostalgic factor of Sonic Adventure 2, but Sonic Adventure 2 is also something great to adapt into a movie. So I think both of these are kind of like working out in a similar way. But the final thing that I wanted to talk about is GameCube on Nintendo Switch Online. And yeah, it isn't exactly perfect, the drip feed kind of sucks, and it is exclusive to the Switch 2 and the expansion pack. That's a whole thing there. You could argue whether that's a good thing or not with all of that going on. But I would say, even though the drip feed is slow, the lineup is surprisingly great. It is making a lot of niche GameCube games more accessible, like F-Zero GX, Super Mario Strikers, Chibi Robo, Soul Calibur 2, as well as like Pokemon Colosseum and XD Gale of Darkness. A lot of the overlooked GameCube games are coming to this, which is really nice to see, and I'm glad that some of the more obscure ones are kind of being added first. I think that is great, and I really appreciate that. I feel like the GameCube is like one of those consoles where the obscure games are actually worth bringing back. I mean, sometimes when Nintendo releases those obscure games onto Nintendo Switch Online, they're kind of like the bargain bin, like bottom of the barrel games, like Jelly Boy and stuff like that. But for the GameCube, it really seems like some of these obscure games are actually like pretty good hidden gems here. So it is nice to see that the lineup is interesting for GameCube on Switch Online. But yeah, those are my thoughts on how Nintendo is handling 2000s nostalgia. It feels much more natural than how they handled 80s and 90s nostalgia. Maybe it's because, like, the 2000s isn't, like, too drastically different from today, like how 80s gaming was compared to today. Like, we are already starting to see HD and online gaming around that time, so even though it does kind of differ culturally, it does kind of seem like something that can be implemented a bit more naturally. But yeah, anyways, let me know what you think. And thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!